Welcome, everybody. Appreciate everybody that's on with us right now, showing up to our webinar. And I am very thrilled for the discussion that we're going to have today. I've got just some incredible panelists, and I think a really important topic. So, welcome, everybody. My name is Jason Johnson. I represent the Y-Try organization. We're the lucky organization that gets to host these webinars. And I'm the director of training. The Y-Try organization, we kind of specialize in resilience. We train a resilience model on helping people learn the skills of resilience. We've been around for about 20 years, but we started these webinars in 2020. I started these, and they very quickly turned into just a really fun space for educators and mental health professionals to show up and to share and learn some ideas from just some incredible panelists. And so this one came together really fun. I'll formally introduce this subject and our panelists here shortly. But before I do that, just a couple notes on the webinar for today. I see some familiar faces that I know have been on some of these before, but I also see some new names. And so our plan is we're going to go about an hour. Occasionally, we spill a little bit over beyond the hour, which isn't uncommon if the conversation is headed in a really useful direction that way. But we'll target to go about an hour. We're on a webinar link, so myself and the other two panelists are the only ones with live cameras and mics, which means for the rest of you that are attending, we can't see you or hear you. So we lean quite heavily on the chat to be able to interact. So we'll keep a live chat for this. And if you have any questions as we're talking, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I'll try to capture some of those as we go. You can feel free to share some of your thoughts and response as well. Just to make sure that we're using the chat in a way so that everybody can see it, there's one setting that is useful to adjust in the chat if you're willing. If you open up your chat tool, where you would type in a message, right above where you type the message, it says to, and then there's a little drop-down arrow where you can select who you're sharing your message with. If you're willing to adjust that to everyone, it'll make it so that everybody can see your comments. Otherwise, if it says to hosts and panelists or anything like that, then not everybody can see the comments. So if you're willing to adjust that, I think it's helpful. The chat is a great space with great ideas bouncing around. Make that adjustment. And then after you've made that adjustment, just to do a quick chat check-in, here's what I want to find out. Most of you have probably started your new school year or are just about to. So what I want you to do is just type an emoji into the chat that expresses how things are going so far with the start of your new school year. So go ahead and express yourself via emoji on how your new school year is going so far. Go ahead and put it in. There we go. I feel all of those. oh, that's impressive. We got I love it, Veronica. We got the whirlwind emoji. The rarely used tornado emoji is perfect. And we're seeing a little bit of everything. And, some of those may have a little bit of feelings of overwhelmment behind them. And if that's the case already, I'm really glad you're here. I think we got some great discussion that's going to be really useful, really important as we kick off the new year. So let me introduce the topic, and then I will introduce our panelists, and then we'll just jump right into it. The title for our discussion today is going to be taking a human-centered approach to learning, focusing specifically on building school climate through belonging and resilience. And we've got two absolute experts with us today that I'm excited to introduce. First, we've got Veronica Maurer. Veronica stands as a beacon of inspiration in the realm of education, currently serving as the Chief Executive Officer of School Climate Excellence Educational Services and Consulting, and as a coordinator for the Clark County School District's Safe and Respectful Learning Environments Department. Has 22 years of experience in the field, has made significant contributions as an educator and education program professional for the Nevada Department of Education, advocacy for valuing student voice, promoting equity, and enhancing school climate, etc. Veronica, we are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for showing up today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you all for joining this webinar today. And as Jason just shared a little bit about me, just been in the work for years. Personally, I'm married with 7 children and 2 grandchildren. So this is definitely a passion, right? I have few that have gone through school and some that are still going through it. And so school climate excellence is a passion of mine. And I'm going to turn it over to Miss Gemma Liberty to go ahead and, or turn it back to Jason to go ahead and share a little bit about Miss Gemma Liberty before I get into what school climate is all about.
Thank you so much. Perfect transition to introducing Gemma Liberty. Gemma is a passionate educator, NBCT Gallup certified Clifton Strengths coach, and the founder of Evolve Education. Helps schools humanize teaching and learning by replacing deficit thinking with strengths awareness, fostering effective collaborations, and leaning in where students already shine. Her approach pairs strength-based coaching with brain-aligned practice and simple human-centered data. So teams track what matters, students feeling seen, staff using talents daily, and instruction tuned to students' learning modalities and strengths. Gemma, we are thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for being here today. You are muted, Gemma.
Well, I'm not off to a great start. Here am I, but that's all right. I'm resilient, which is a strength. So here we go. Thank you so much. Thank you for those who are tuning in, because I know that time is a thing when you're an educator, and any minutes that you give, any time that you give them, are truly appreciated. So looking forward to learning from everyone as well. Yep. I am just very passionate about turning schools from factories of limiting beliefs to sanctuaries for gifts, and students walking away knowing why they are important and why they shine and what they're all about. Truly excited right now to build what I'm building, which is some platforms and some tools to humanize some of our data and get some soft data into teachers' hands in schools.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into that in a little bit, because I think you've got a really, really great approach to a topic that some people aren't always thrilled about, but is a really key ingredient to doing our jobs effectively. I'm wondering if we could just start off just very briefly, like in 60 to 90 seconds, just give us a brief overview of what the work you've been doing for the last year or so has looked like, where your efforts have been focused. And then I think that'll set us up nicely to move into the subject matter. Gemma, do you want to start? Tell us just a little bit, and then we'll have Veronica go.
Sure. I'm a Clifton Strengths coach, and I became obsessed with the assessment because I had never been given a list of strengths that were so aligned. We don't necessarily talk about strengths, we talk about deficits. And that really got me thinking about schools. And had I known sooner what my strengths were, what I really would have leaned into in my life as a little one who was, afraid to show deficits. So that is what I'm working on, getting strengths into the hands of educators so that teachers and educators can lean into the strengths of students in order to leverage some of the deficits versus keep pounding the deficits over and over. And also collaboration between teams and teachers. It's amazing what can happen when we see each other's strengths.
Nice, thank you. Veronica, what about you? What have you been focusing on the last year or so?
So School Climate Excellence was born in 2024. However, it's been in the works since I started with I got my first master's in variant exceptionalities. And so, with that being said, the work that I have been involved with since the beginning of my educational career has had to do with behavior and discipline. As much as I wanted to run from it, it just kept finding its way back to me. And so I found myself as a behavior specialist at an inner city school in Florida, and then moved on to be a dean at another school. And here I am still working in this world. And I was like, there's a way that I have to get in front of this, right? We talk about being proactive so much. We figure, like, what is it to be proactive, right? And just like Gemma mentioned, leveraging the support of students, what I pride myself on with school climate excellence is that there is a way, there is a tool, and there is a framework on leveraging the support of students to help improve the climate within your school or within your setting. And so it is just important to not only look at the climate surveys if you have them, but we have to consider discipline, what's happening with engagement, what's happening, what are those symptoms that contribute to the climate and the culture of your school or your classroom. So the one thing that I've been doing is just kind of making this plain and simple where everyone can understand it, students can understand it, students learn how to read data and how to make improvements to that. So that's what I'm excited to share a little bit about with you today. And back to you, Jason.
Perfect setup. That's right where I wanted to go. I want to jump right into the idea of school climate. So my background is, I didn't even formally introduce myself. I'm a school psychologist, and I did that up through public ed up until I started as the director of training here at White Tri about 10 years ago. But my background is in public ed as a school psych. And so I just keep that in mind as I'm like viewing things and forming my ideas. It's definitely through the lens of a school psychologist. But when I hear school climate, which is, I think, going to be at the heart of what we talk about today, it's one of those big picture ideas that exists in education that I think people hear and they're like, yeah, I like it. But I think sometimes those big picture ideas, we struggle with, like, what does it look like specifically in practice, and what does it actually mean? And that's what I'm hoping to get into. So I wanted to just kick things off and ask you if you could just share a little bit about when we talk about school climate, what does it actually mean to you? What should it look like? And I'm going to combine with that also, I'm going to add, like, why does it matter? Like, why should this idea of school climate matter to staff, faculty, students, etc.? Let's start with Veronica, and then we'll throw over to Gemma.
All right, I'm glad you asked that question. Before you show a picture of that slide I shared with you, I'm going to ask everyone to just take a minute, close your eyes for a second. Imagine a windy day. The wind is blowing. The leaves are blowing on the trees. You might see debris blowing on the ground. Do you actually see the wind? If you say you saw the wind, you lied. You don't see the wind, but you see the results of the wind. You see what the wind produces. Just like in an educational setting, you see what that environment produces. So we're looking at environments to see if it's thriving or if it's in declining state. And so when you're looking at, if you know about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, we're looking at the universal population. What's happening with students? Do we see students that are disengaged? Do we see teachers that are burnt out? Do we see bullying happening? What does that data look like? And I know that we want to capitalize on the strengths of the environment, but we also have to consider what's happening to contribute to a declining environment. So just to sum it up, school climate is the quality and character of school life. And it's something that we as educators have to prioritize, not from, yes, policy has to be included, but when we're thinking of our brick and mortar building, our environment, the people that we work with, I love the title. I love hearing we're talking about a human-centered approach. Being human-centered is simple. It's about people first and relationships, and that's where we have to start.
I love it. What would you add to that, Gemma?
I would say that when a climate is safe, I feel like I can show up as myself. I don't have to hide parts of myself. I don't have to curate how I show up to be palatable to a certain place, which eases my nervous system immediately. And if the climate is good, then my weaknesses, my deficits will be met with curiosity and investigation versus anything else. And so that type of climate, you hear it because you hear what's right with people more than what's wrong with people. And it matters because engagement follows belonging. And I think it was the Gallup statistic that said if a student feels that their strengths are being leaned into, and there's an adult who believes in them and is excited for their future, that they are 30, not 30 times more engaged than those who said no. And so we've got to lean into some of this data and figure out how we can leverage that.
It's pretty remarkable, the impact. Let's explore that a little bit. What's at stake here? What's at stake if we don't really apply some intentionality behind how we consider our and how we structure our school climates? Let's just go with the same order. Let's go Veronica and then Gemma.
I mean, what's at stake is one, we start to lose our students left and right. They might be in the seat and you might have that seat time, but are they actually in the seat? Are they mentally there? I think Gemma was referencing it just a few minutes ago, but when we have our students, are they truly, truly grasping what's being taught? And we focus so much on test scores instead of competencies that I think I see it evolving. It's happening slowly, but it needs to continue to happen because we want to keep our kids in school. We're in the service business as educators. And if you go to a restaurant and you don't like the service, you don't want to go back. Parents shouldn't have to wrestle with their children every morning to say, you have to go to school. But why do I have to go to school? What does it matter? Why do I need to understand this algebra? I have chat GPT. Like, we need to catch up. And so we are falling behind as educators. It is important for us to stay abreast to what's happening with our future generation. And that, I mean, goes back to students. We have to have them on our team. We have to value their voice, not just say it, but validate it. Let it be shown, let it be written in policy.
Amen. Amen. Gemma, what about you?
I don't know. I don't know that I can add much to that, but I will say that presence is a big thing. You can go through a school day without being present. You can, unfortunately, go through a school day sometimes, some places, without really being engaged with or spoken with. Nobody engages with you. And so what's at stake? I think our humanity is at stake. This sounds dramatic, but it's true. And when climate is right, people show up and they're comfortable, and so they learn. And when climate is off, whether that is, staff or students, they show up differently. They show up reserved. They're not present, and they're not their best selves. And in this age of AI and everything else, our humanity, ourselves, we need to show up as our best selves and not as our shadow selves, just trying to exist through the day.
I'm always writing notes when I do these, and I love it when I have an aha moment. And so I had an aha moment while you were both speaking, because I think we focus, we get pulled in, and I'm doing trainings throughout the country and going and working with groups, trying to help assist with improving their capacity to teach resilience, which is such a vital piece. But we come in, and all of us, I think, come in to address specific problems. And so right now, like, chronic absenteeism is through the roof. It's a challenge everybody's dealing with. And we come in and we're putting a lot of effort in how do we get the students in the building. But there's this additional battle that's happening of, Well, also, how do we help the students that are in the building be more present? But I don't hear that one talked about quite as much. So both things are happening simultaneously. And then, as was mentioned, we also have to figure out how to make sure that our faculty and staff is fully present as well, because we have all these things, we're all overwhelmed, we have all these things happening, and so it's a lot. And school climate directly impacts all of that. And so there's a lot to unpack and dig into. This is such an important topic. Veronica, do you want me to pull up the slide that you shared yet? Are you ready to speak on that?
I probably already talked about it, but go ahead. I'm a visual learner, so I like visual.
Yeah, I think it's a
And
useful visual. I'm going to pull it up, and you can just kind of talk through what it means, and if there's any other useful points to add.
well, so I think I mentioned earlier that I love being outside. And it's probably why you see this picture. It's probably why you see a palm tree in my face. I love being outside. I am from Florida. I love the beach. I didn't go enough when I lived there. So being here in Nevada, I don't get to see the beaches often, right? But that is my place. That's where I can think, where I outdoors is what I enjoy. And so we know a lot of our students also enjoy being outside, just being in an environment that feels right to them and being around people that feels right to them. And so with the picture that you're seeing here on the left, you see a declining environment, and then you see one that's thriving. But what produces that thriving environment are the people in it and what's happening in that setting, right? And so if your environment in which you work, in which you are teaching, is thriving, then you're going to see students that are engaged and wanting to be there. You're going to see that chronic absenteeism reduced. You're going to see more students wanting to co-create, and hopefully educators wanting to co-create, because that is important right now in this day and time. When you have a voice at the table, you not only just can say an idea, but you're a thought partner in making that idea come to pass or come to fruition. And that's important right now because our students actually know a lot more than we give them credit to knowing.
Nice.
And you can go to the next slide. And so this is just an image of, evidence of disengagement concerns. When you do your temperature check, you don't have to use, I have a survey. You don't have to use my survey or anyone else's survey. You can do a quick temperature check right in your class once a week, once a month. Why wait to the end of the school year or wait to the end of the year to find out how's my service? How am I treating you? What is my approach? Am I being respectful to you? Are we seeing evidence of disengagement having to do with behavior concerns, a decline in academic performance, social withdrawal or isolation, lack of empathy? Are we seeing that? Are we seeing stress? Are our educators stressed? We just have to take time to rethink education and make sure that the voice of our students are actually being heard. And that also has to do with the behaviors and the evidence of disengagement concerns that we are seeing in education. You can go.
Nice.
Right?
You want me to pull up the next one?
Nope, that's okay. I'll wait.
I wanted to at least get that one up because I thought it was such a nice list of kind of simple, informal assessment that we can do just to take a temperature check as we're trying to apply more intentionality behind it. I'm curious. I wonder if we could get into a little bit like what are some of the big impacts you've seen, because you all are experts in this. This is where you're spending a lot of time trying to help educators. What are some of the biggest impacts you've seen when school climate is strong versus when it's struggling? And how do symptoms tie back into that a little bit? Let's maybe start with Gemma and then throw over to Veronica.
Sure. I think it's the same for students and teachers and staff. You don't want to be in a place that doesn't feel safe for you to show up as you are. And if you feel safe in that way, and if you feel like your voice matters, if you feel like your presence good, bad, and all of it is accepted, that's somewhere that you stay. But if you're in a place where your deficits are constantly at the forefront, where your labels, your deficits, your weaknesses are constantly at the forefront, that's a place that you don't want to be. And it causes disengagement in teachers. I've seen teachers leave in droves just from not feeling seen. And that seems like such a, how do we grasp that feeling seen and belonging? But that's where soft data comes in, and we can actually grasp it and should be.
Nice. How about you, Veronica?
When we think of, let's say, okay, I was looking at the National Gallup poll, and it did say, according to the Gallup.com, almost 1/3 or 31% of the students surveyed in 2024 give their schools an A. And when it comes to school climate and just giving their schools a grade. It is improving compared to the 2023, which was 22% gave their schools an A, and then 26%. And so I'm just thinking, we are educating our future generation. We should have the stamp and seal of excellence in all that we do in education. Yes, I get it. We are human. We are people. We get frustrated too. Like I said, I have a lot of kids. I get frustrated too. But it's my job to not only teach how to manage my stress as well as my frustrations, but also I have to model it. And so we have to get back to one, making sure we are mentally sound and healthy and ready to walk into that classroom. And if we are at a point of frustration, my background is also verbal de-escalation. And we have to make sure that we learn to tap out and say, hey, I need a little help right here. I got to pull myself together. Because if we don't, our students are going to see a side of us that they should not see, especially as educators. We have to learn how to show that excellence, be that excellence. And my personal philosophy is being a leader of valuing everyone. And I use that acronym because in education, we like acronyms, but it's love. It just boils down to loving your students, loving what you do, loving the people around you, and yeah, just love.
Leader of value in everyone. I'm writing it down. It's so good.
I don't know.
It's
You can have it. I don't own love.
here's what I want to try to do now. My school psych brain is very formulaic sometimes. So here's what I want to try to break down in the time that we have left. I want to try to kind of paint a picture for people that are on here for how they can start viewing this in an accessible way and in an actionable way. And so let's start with, I want to try to connect the dots a little bit. Let's start with viewing symptoms. And I hate to start with the negative, but we're going to get to the positive because we're going to connect to starting points of solutions. And then we've got some practical strategies I'm really excited to be able to share. But let's start with the symptoms. Like, how can a person potentially connect the dots? Like, what symptoms should we be looking at within a school? And then how might that tie back to an issue of school culture? Because we throw things out, we have our measurables: chronic absenteeism. Are the kids showing up? Performance. Are they doing the work? Office referrals. Are they having behavior incidents that are becoming distractions? How do we connect those symptoms back to, how do those connect back to deeper issues of school culture? Let's start there. And then we'll kind of build from there. Let's go Gemma and then Veronica.
Sure. So we tend to measure symptoms, don't we? I think this would be a great time to pull up what we measure, if you have that ready, Jason.
Yep.
So we measure, test scores, growth. We have stats on behavior referrals, tardies, dress codes, seat time, attendance, all of those things. And yes, so just that first page there, right? This would be something typical that an educator might see. So you have your growth there. Let's say you're a classroom teacher. There's your growth of your students. That's the spread of grades that you might track, right? You've got your attendance that you track, your tardies, your behavior referrals. And then I would just ask your audience, like, when you look at something like this, when you look at data like this, what decisions do you make, or what actions do you take based on this data? And if you just drop that in the chat, would you do tardy sweeps? Right? Looks like there's a lot of tardies. Would you make some phone calls home? Would you do small groups in math? Those sound like some of the things that come out of this type of data. But if we measure symptoms, shouldn't we also be measuring preventions? If all we did was track our weight, but not what we ate, which is what schools do, we have lopsided data. So if we could just go to that second portion, and I would just ask the audience, so what if you received this data from your school? Percentage of students in your classroom at the beginning of the year who feel seen, who say they feel like they belong in school, belong in the classroom, who say that they have an adult at school who they trust, who advocates for them. 43% are aware of the strength that they have, their top learning modalities, the connections that they're making in school. 72% have positive school ties. What types of decisions and actions would come then from this data here? A whole different slew, I'm sure, of ideas are popping into your head. Wow, how do I address these things? Because these things right here are your attendance. These things right here are your graduation rate. These things right here are your behavior issues. This right here is it. This is people. This is human data. And we call it soft, and it is not. It is only soft because it's sometimes not as super objective, right? If people self-identify as a certain way. But truly, our standardized testing data isn't the God we think it is. And, the time that we put into that. So I just wanted to show that in that, let's start measuring not only the symptoms, but how about the preventions as well.
Really good. I love it. Veronica, what would you add to that?
You know what? Honestly, I need you to repeat the question, please.
Yeah, you got it. So this is me maybe trying to take too formulaic of approach to a big thing, but I feel like one of the things I was always helpful with as a school psych is trying to simplify some of these processes that tend to feel really overwhelming really quickly. So how can we begin the process of connecting symptoms back? Like, we see these symptoms in our schools. How do we begin the process of connecting those back and understanding how they may tie to a deeper issue of school climate, right? Like, we have our measurables, but how do we make the connection and the understanding back to what's going on behind the scenes?
Thank you for repeating the question. If you don't mind sharing that, I think it's the next slide I sent over to you.
Yep.
I know we have you toggling back and forth, but while you're getting that prepared, so the School Climate Excellence Framework, which I call SEEV, SEEV, the 4 constructs that make up that is safety, environment, engagement, and virtues. Now, this was adopted from the National Center on Safe and Supportive Learning, and also the National Center on School Climate. And so if you're looking at this framework and you're looking at safety and what behaviors that could be observed, what data points that can be measured that relate to each of those constructs, that is what's important, where schools can say, you know what? We are falling short in the area of safety. So when our students take the school climate survey, which, like I said, there's many out there, I have a school climate survey as well, but you can create your own. But when educators are intentional about reviewing the data and not just saying, you know what, you did it, thanks. It's a requirement, it's done. But if you're talking about student voice, but you don't really validate what they said in that survey, are you really concerned with student voice? If you're not leveraging the support of students to say, you know what, I noticed on the survey this past school year or this semester that you said you don't have a trusted adult or that you don't feel respected. What can we do about this? What can we do to ensure you feel respected, you feel seen, you feel heard in this setting? Why aren't you feeling safe? Oh, there's bullying happening. So we might need to educate our students on what bullying is and what it isn't, and how it can hurt our environment. The one thing I did, and you can stop sharing that slide, was I started a leadership climate committee years ago. I worked at a local charter school, and I don't know, some of you know that in the charter world, a lot of times, if you don't have the manpower, you do what you have to do to get the job done, right? And you want to do that with excellence. And so, literally, I went into the cafeteria. There was fifth grade students, and I was looking at data. I was looking at what was happening outside my office door with the line of students. And I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, I can't do this by myself. And second of all, something has to be done. And so I showed the students, like, look at this. Is this us? Is this a reflective of who we want to be at our school? And I'm like, no. I'm like, well, this is what people see. So what can we do about it? So I was like, well, who wants to help me? I said, you. They were like, you all raising their hand. I picked 10. And that was the first year that the Student Leadership Climate Committee was born. And from that point, I had other schools saying, like, how did you do that? What do you do? I'm like, and they're ready to help. They want to help. They want to lean in. It's this co-creation in the works. They want to do it. From the school assemblies, making the videos, getting everyone on board. They can do it a lot better than we can. So
I love it. It's so refreshing to hear. We hear like the concept of voice and choice. I hate to say it's been overused because it's so important, but I think sometimes maybe we oversimplify it a little bit. And so we think about like, okay, how do I give them an opportunity to share in my classroom? How do I give controlled choices where I'm comfortable with either answer? But there's a bigger piece to that as well. Like, are they being seen? Do they feel seen? Do they feel like there's a caring adult in the building that knows who they are? And that has such a direct connect to the resilience piece. You dig into risk factors and protective factors of resilience, and the protective factor that I think gets looked at and considered the most because it's the most common one across years of looking at what makes individuals more resilient. It's that protective factor of having a caring adult. Do I have at least one caring adult in my life? Somebody that I recognize, sees me, and cares about me. And it's a game changer from everything you've described all the way into the resilience side. I want to move over now. So if we're trying to move to better intentionality behind this in our buildings, in our classrooms, whatever space we feel like we can influence in our world, what are some of the key pieces or key ingredients that we should focus on first? Because I think sometimes it's really easy to feel overwhelmed. Like, if I sit down and make a list of everything that I need to fix, is going to be really big. So how do we take that fix a broken window approach? What are the key pieces we should be looking at to start at first when that's going to have a positive impact on school climate? Let's go Veronica and then Gemma.
well, actually, I was going to say, you know what? And this is something that Gemma's been saying basically the whole time is, yeah, when we get the data, well, we want to look at the deficits, but we have to also look at what's happening in this classroom, and because their rating is much higher than in this classroom. If we're taking a school approach and we're just looking at school by school, brick and mortar, what's happening, right? And so that comes from reflective practice is something that I think schools have gotten away from or maybe never started. But when you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your service and how you're teaching, are you boring the heck out of students? Or are they really truly enjoying it? Are they engaged? And so we get so caught up in ourselves and like, I'm the expert in this area. I know everything and I'm just going to teach it how I'm going to teach it. But it's falling on deaf ears. And so we have to really start with our approach. Seeing kids as students, as kids, as human, and taking that personalized human-centered approach in every single interaction. Yes, we can talk about having our school climate leadership team and what that entails. But if we're talking about starting small, we have to start with our approach on a day-to-day basis. And when we have a rough day, which is going to happen, we have to understand the value in rationally detaching from that day and then being reflective on how you can do better tomorrow and be there for your students.
Love it. How about you, Gemma? When I ask for like key ingredients, key starting points, to try not to get too overwhelmed when we're really trying to approach this, what do you recommend? Where do you recommend we start?
Yeah, well, Jason, I'm with you. You know, words like culture and resilience can have this very, very broad, sweeping feeling. And there's so many words in education that people are sick and tired of. That are, I think it's called semantic bleaching, when the word just has no more meaning because we've just talked it to death. And so I think we do need to get strategic, as you said. And I think that's the smart way to go about it. So picture this, you're a classroom teacher. You've got a benchmark test coming up, right? You're in a school that is very heavily focused on those ELA and math scores. You feel the pressure and the overwhelm that every teacher feels. Billy acts up. He acts up occasionally, but he acts up. And you've got this time to get the kids prepared with those last few things you need before this benchmark test. Are you more likely to take a step back and be patient? Or are you more likely to go, oh my goodness, referral right now because the rest of the kids need to hear this lesson. I am out of time. Like, does panic set in? There's what I would say is we need to get honest. You said, what are the key ingredients to focus on? I would say before we focus on any one thing, we need to be honest with ourselves about what we're truly focused on and have that conversation. Because a different school focused on different things would yield a different result from that teacher who is also feeling pressure in that environment. So the student's disengaged, the teacher is, dysregulated. And so where is our energy truly going? Is that where we want it to go? And can we shift that somehow? So what's our target?
Really smart. I really good advice. And by the way, we're going to put contact info up towards the end here of our panelists. I'm guessing a lot of you will have some follow-up questions for our panelists, and they have some really great resources if you're looking for help, looking for guidance towards this. I can't help. We do a workshop on improving student relationships. It's one of my favorite PDs that we get to deliver. And we use a lot of visual metaphors within the Y-Try approach. One of the visual metaphors we'll use in regards to how we connect with students is like the camera on your cell phone. It has a selfie mode and it has a portrait mode. And I think a lot of times for us as the grown-ups, when we're overwhelmed and when we're dysregulated, like you said, we get stuck kind of in selfie mode. Like, how do I recharge? How do I not let this get to me too much? And similar to like your phone camera, if you're in selfie mode and we're so focused on that piece of it, we can lose track of what's happening in front of our face a little bit and lose track of the gauging where our students are at as far as how they're feeling within the climate. And so I think as educators, we have to become really deft at being able to pivot back and forth between that selfie mode and that portrait mode, because the selfie mode is important. I do have to apply self-care and I do have to take care of myself, but then I also have to be able to quickly pivot back and have a really acute awareness of the regulation and the emotional temperature of the people that are with me and in front of me. And so it's a really hard balancing act, but I'm so impressed at educators' ability to do it. Let's get practical. I wanna see if we can dig into a few practical solutions, because we've got some great ideas and some great starting points, and we've talked through, I think, some theory. But I want to speak on behalf of, I know we've got some educators here that would love just like, what's a thing I could do? What's one or two things I could do right now? Like if I walk out of this and go into my classroom tomorrow, what's a thing I could start out with? Let's just go back and forth, see if we can get one or two practical starting points for pieces of advice or practices you would give to try to help improve climate, like even beginning tomorrow. Let's go Gemma first and then Veronica.
Sure. I was going to go, ooh, 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 but I restrained myself. So there's a great activity called the 3 E's. I didn't come up with it. And that is just gathering information at the beginning of the year on what students or staff, whoever you serve, what they enjoy, what they're excited about, and what they excel at. What they enjoy, what they're excited about, and what they excel at. And there was a time as an educator where I thought, oh, what a waste of time. That data is invaluable at the beginning of the year, especially if you aggregate it and then lean in toward it. That's one. I have like 5 more. So
we'll go back and forth. We can go around the horn a few times, because I know these are what people are hungry for. Veronica, what you got?
Well, aside from saying administer my school climate excellence questionnaire, I won't say that, but I say it to say it. Aside from that, I would say have a restorative circle. I would say a connection circle with your students, and just ask them, like, what can we do better to ensure you like being here, like with your students? Have a circle. Get the conversation started. And they're like going to be like, what? You like really want to know? Some students may not want to share out. Some students may want to share out. That's why it's important to also provide an alternate way so that students can provide that feedback. And if they want to remain anonymous, they can remain anonymous. And so whether that be I used to have the class mailbox, you can do it that way, or something digitized. But I would say start the conversation, making the connections. As humans, we are hardwired to connect. They're going to love the opportunity to talk to one another, learn about one another. That's how we make connections. And so that would be my idea. Have a restorative circle. Gerald, I won't charge for that.
I was just going to say, I'm going to find it. I'll put the link in the chat. So we have a friend on here, Gerald Robinson, who's a former panelist. So I'm thrilled to shout him out. He was a panelist a couple months ago at the beginning of the year, and he talked specifically about restorative practices and restorative circles. And so I will be very unapologetic. We have a previous webinar. So restorative practices, it's gaining more steam. A lot of people have heard of it. I still run into people that are unfamiliar with it, but it is a really, really impressive model. I highly recommend, if you're not familiar with it, do a little bit of research on it. And it is a great way to do exactly what we've been talking about. Great model. Gerald on here is an expert. I'll find the link of the previous webinar and throw it in the chat here for people that may be interested in it. Let's go. It's restorative practices, Sharonica, or sometimes they'll call them restorative circles. And I'll find a link. In the webinar, we have our friend Gerald, who's an educator in Clark County as well, and he shares some nice information on that. Gemma, let's throw back to you. Give us another practical strategy we could start with.
All right, let's do it. So I would challenge teachers just to take a seating chart, and leaders to take a staff roster. and get yourself a green marker, a yellow marker, and a red marker. And if you can write down 3 strengths next to that person's name, give yourself a green, give yourself a point. If you can only, think of 1 or 2, give yourself a yellow, give yourself a half a point. And if you really can't think of a strength yet, and you're just getting to know everybody at the beginning of the year, this is baseline data, give yourself a red or a 0, and then calculate your points, divide it by the total number. That's your data for strengths knowledge at the beginning of the year, and challenge yourself to grow it and see where you're at each benchmark. I guarantee you that is just some soft data that will be affecting all of the hard data that you are worried about.
This is really good. Thank you. Veronica, you got another one for us?
Yes. One of my all time, I mean, it's pretty similar, but one of my favorite things to do is to have a chart, put a chart up, and it's almost like the plus delta. And so you just basically have the post-it notes where students are writing down what's going well, what's not going so well, and then focusing on 1 or 2 things, whatever's going well and whatever's not going so well, and asking students to contribute to not only complaining about the issue, but the solution, like how we're going to solve this issue. So a lot of times, student voice, we get the voice, but we forget to leverage their support in improving what needs to be improved.
Really nice. It reminded me, I'm gonna take a turn. Is that all right?
Go for it.
Thank you. It reminds me, I saw an incredible practice, and it takes a little effort, especially if you're in a really big school. And so you may have to like break it down by grade or by classroom. But I saw the most impressive thing. It was at a school in Indianapolis, and they had a post-it note for every student in their school, and then they had them grouped by grade, and then the goal was they needed to identify one adult in the building that knew that student, like more than just by name, like at a somewhat of a friendly level. And then they would put the name of that adult on the paper. And some students had multiple names, but then there were some students that they didn't have a name of that adult yet in the building. And they used that as like a quick post-it note based way to like graphically demonstrate the data and show who they were able to identify quickly which students they needed to really find connection with. And it was, I think it was a pretty simple but pretty ingenious way just to chart out like if connection was happening, where the connection was, and if connection was happening, if there was a caring adult for each student. It was really impressive. Let's talk bigger picture now, because I know sometimes it's easy to get discouraged if we might feel like we're on an island somewhere. I'm fully bought into this. I don't feel like I have the district support behind this that I wish I had. What are some bigger picture ideas, like potentially at a district or policy level, that might help from a broad strategy standpoint that could assist with like some systemic shifts towards strengthening school climates that we might consider or try to help lobby for if we have any influence locally? Let's go Veronica and then Gemma.
Really just, policy. It goes back to policy and district leaders prioritizing school climate, understanding it first, not just saying it as one of those buzzwords, but understand the constructs that relate to school climate. And it's about the perspectives of the students. Also, the teachers, you also have to consider the perspectives of teachers, but really it goes back to making sure that policymakers understand it and writing it into policy that it matters. That's what I think it boils down to. And also giving permission, because we get, as educator, I mean, I remember it just, you have the pacing guide, you have all these requirements. You're like, I don't have time for this, but we do. And it starts with one child. It starts with your approach and how you connect with that student and how you allow students to connect within that environment, within that setting. But educators need the permission to do it in some cases.
Nice. Thank you. How about you, Gemma? What advice, what recommendation would you give as we are, if we're looking like bigger picture, district community level?
I think the future of education will have much broader data dashboards. And I think that we will start tracking what matters. And I think that the most progressive and advanced districts will start doing it sooner than later. We have to go beyond, especially in this age of AI, of only tracking the standardized multiple choice, choose a letter data on students, because it often isn't the thing we want it to be. And as much as data driven is one of those, words out there that is so overused, we need to start being honest about what that data really says and doesn't say about students. And do we really want to run schools based on these usually two numbers versus human data? I think that's where we're headed. I hope that's where we're headed. And I think that's what districts need to start considering.
Nice. I'm going to hit you with kind of a surprise question. I apologize to do this, but I had a thought, and this is the school psych in me. So as a school psych in my state, we were supposed to be the behavior experts in the school. And so whether we were on, I went through a district in an RTI model and then a district in an MTSS model. And it was all supposed to be data driven. And one of the real challenges is we would come in and try to measure data, and then we would try to leave a model behind. Like, I can't be in every classroom all the time. And so one of the challenges is trying to help assist educators that are already overwhelmed, make it easier to collect data. What advice would you give to an educator that may be a little bit averse or maybe feeling overwhelmed? Like, any tips for trying to make life a little bit easier when it comes to collecting data? Because data is everything. Like, without it, it makes it really tough to make informed decisions. So, surprise sneak question, any tips for people that may be feeling overwhelmed or may already have an aversion towards collecting data? Any tips for making it a little easier? Let's go Gemma and then Veronica.
My tip is to make it small and make it easy. Do a hand raising. Like, if you were to choose, right, let's say learning modalities. If, how do you learn best, do you think? Here are 5 ways that people typically learn. Do a quick hand raise and then lean into that direction. It takes seconds. Create a very short Google Doc and have it do the data for you. 3 questions tonight. On soft data, it's not a test. It's answering honestly, and it's answering for what matters. So take it home and answer it. It's not something that needs to take up teacher time, but allow yourself to just do a micro move. We ask so much of educators, and the thing is it's the tiniest things we do every day that matter and that
Nice.
leverage and compound so much.
I love it. Thank you. Veronica, any tips for the data averse or the data overwhelmed?
Really goes back to the foundation of my LEAPS framework for students. The S in LEAPS stands for solutions. And so I think I said it before. We have the data. We need to use it. We want to use it. But how to use it sometimes can seem like a daunting task. But we have to use it, or it's just a number. So we need to use the data. And not just one data set or academic data, but how do we triangulate all of this and to make it make sense for what's needed in my setting or my environment?
I love it. All right, we're we're about out of time. I want to give you one last question. I want to end on a really nice positive note. This has been really, really great. I appreciate the thoughtful responses both of you have given. I'm going to put up contact info. And while I've got that up, I want to give you both a question to respond to. Simple one. What's giving you hope in education right now? What's something that's giving you hope as you look across the landscape? There's a lot that can make us nervous and uncertain within the landscape of education. What's the thing that's giving you hope? Let's go, Veronica, and then Gemma.
Being that I am with the Clark County School District, I am super excited about the Nevada Portrait of a Learner and the connection piece. We want to make sure students feel connected, that they are empowered, and that they are thriving. And so that is the vision of our superintendent, and I'm super excited to be a part of that vision. I've always be an educator at heart, even though I'm at the district level now. But yeah, I'm just excited about that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes to pass. And I do truly believe great things are going to come to pass because of that.
Nice. How about you, Gemma? What's something that's giving you hope right now?
You know, I am such an educator advocate and fan that I would say it's educators and teachers who give me hope. No matter what we've thrown at them, they are so heart-centered, and they, I just can't say enough about what they do in the classroom, about how they lead schools. There's so many difficult things on a daily basis that get thrown at them. So I believe in educators. I believe that the exact right people are in classrooms and schools right now to make the changes that need to be made. I'm glad that strengths are getting some momentum, and people are starting to talk about strengths versus deficit thinking in schools. And as strange as this may sound, I'm also really, AI gives me hope. And I know some people like cringe at AI, but it is going to force us into our humanity. It truly will, because it will take care of so many other things that the only thing it can't be is human. And that is what we're going to be pushed to be. And we're going to be pushed to, lean into our gifts. So very excited about that.
I love it. Thank you. I'll answer my own question as well. For me, I think it's similar to what you said. It's definitely seeing how educators are responding. And even in this rapidly changing climate of technology, educators are doing the work. And I think it has forced us to ask and to reconcile with some really important questions that do go back to the humanity piece. And I think we're going to have to look at and examine the importance and the practice of connection at a much deeper level than we ever have, because the technology is creating space where the connection may not be as present through some of the technological pieces. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing educators just continue to show up and do incredible things through the vehicle of connection. And that inspires me. When humans connect with other humans, pretty incredible stuff happens. And resilience is always a byproduct of that. So also you two give me hope, knowing that there's great humans out there doing the work. Hey, no worries. Veronica, I think you have to hop off. But I've got contact info up. I know you all will be happy to hear from anybody that may have any questions. You've got some great resources beyond what we shared today. But give our panelists a huge round of applause. Give our attendees. Thank you all for showing up and doing the work. I really, really appreciate you all. Really fun discussion today. I'm going to play us out with some music. I hope all of you have a great end of your week, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks everybody for doing the work, and please reach out, and hope to have you on to the next one. I've got a couple more exciting webinars in the hopper that'll be coming up over the next few weeks. Thanks, everybody. Veronica, Gemma, phenomenal job. You did fantastic.
Thank you, Jason. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you all. Until next time.
So long.